Hello, and welcome back. All right, let's continue our journey back down a little bit of memory lane for Edith, but also some new discoveries about who her family was and some of the lives they lived kind of outside of her awareness at the time.
When Edie told people Sven was killed by a dragon, she could also have said he was building a dragon-shaped slide that collapsed. She could have, but she didn't.
You can tell from Edith's narration that she really kind of admires this, like, kind of whimsical spirit of Edie. Someone who wouldn't leave home despite the disaster, who kind of maintained a playfulness even though something tragic had happened to someone close to her. That seems to have maybe left some kind of imprint on Edith and how she kind of copes with things herself. In a similar way that we were seeing Molly, the young girl, kind of deal with her situation. I sort of see like us becoming the cat and chasing down the bird and the shark and all those other things as kind of our way of understanding escapism, you know, our way of understanding something quite serious and extreme going on. And that's actually the beautiful thing about using storytelling and language and metaphor for especially for kids, but I also use it with adults therapeutically as well, which is when you can use a metaphor to talk about something that's really complicated and can be emotionally confusing, like death, like grief. Metaphor kind of supplies us with an immediate sort of working model to discuss something that's more concrete and more familiar. You know, and this is built into our culture and language in lots of ways, you know, whether that be something like life is like a river or stream. And, you know, that can help a child understand some complicated emotions because they already have that working model of what a stream is like. You know, things may go down the stream and we may not see them again. And it also communicates that it's a natural thing as well. And so that's really helpful. You can see that in the way that you know, Edie coped with things and communicated some of that stuff to Edith.
Even in her 90s, sometimes Edie seemed a lot younger than my mother.
Hello. Hello. And what a thing to sort of...
Grandpa Sam's first wife, Kay, left on the house was the pink bathroom.
what a
pretty big space.
What a thing to parallel as well. Which is, you know, it seems like Edith and lots of the kids that didn't really have, you know, a space to really be kids in their environment, you know, limited areas to play. Very serious sort of restrictions on where they could go and that sort of thing. And, you know, your mind can sort of understand that, like, mom might be doing some of this to protect us. But I can imagine that having someone who never outgrew that playfulness and childlike perspective on things was really healing and helped develop a strong attachment with Edie, and seems to still be really important to Edith. And this little child here really wants to play as well.
There's a secret in this bathroom. It's in the last place you would look.
Oh, this is making me nostalgic for these sort of pop-up books.
It isn't in the cupboard. It's hidden in this book.
Looks like some
Sven
art.
gave Sam an old camera he'd refurbished. He never put it down.
Murder probe. Huh. Couple turns land into native haven. Was one of their disappearances or deaths investigated as a murder? Or Calvin. So space and army things and photography. Sam Finch, VP. So Sam and Calvin's room.
I knew Grandpa Sam had a twin. And that he never talked about him. I guess my grandpa didn't like history any more than my mom did.
How I Want to Remember My Brother by Sam Finch. The thing I remember is that when he made up his mind, that was it. My brother said he'd die before he ate another mushroom, and he did. At Barbara's funeral, we swore we'd never be afraid again, and he wasn't. I think Calvin always wanted to fly.
Sam! Calvin! Dinner's ready! Coming!
But that day, he finally made up his mind to do it. I told him going around was impossible. Maybe if I hadn't said that,
Calvin! I'm not gonna tell you again!
maybe if the wind hadn't picked up, then maybe he'd still be here. But I doubt it. I think he'd already made up his mind.
God.
That's what I want to remember about my brother. The day he made up his mind to fly. And he did.
Calvin's story felt strangely familiar. When I was younger, I remember trying to do the exact same thing.
Jeez. I love the the way that this communicates a story like that. Yeah, very similar to Molly's little vignette story. clearly something much darker going on that we're only seeing how a child makes sense of. And the story here is like, man, it builds up so much tension, but stops just short of like really being upsetting by sort of staying in a layer of fiction and fantasy, which I can appreciate. It's also heartbreaking that it seems, Sam.
Funeral. Edie roped off Calvin's half of the room.
Never felt quite comfortable talking about Calvin ever again. I do really consider it kind of a privilege that there's sometimes people come to therapy and they may know that there's like really something to sort of process and work on. Sometimes it is like the death of a sibling or a parent or a lover or something like that they've said before to me, like, this is the first time I've ever spoken about this. And that's really heavy, to know that they're sharing that with you, because it means that like they know that sort of to work through what it is they need to process those things, they may need to stop protecting themselves from whatever emotions are there, which it sounds like in Sam's mind, there was even a little bit of like, if only I hadn't done this, or if I had encouraged him not to, or there seems to be a small amount of questioning of like, could he have done something? Not necessarily that he's to blame, but could I have done something? And so especially as a child who like is going to have a hard time making sense of that, it makes sense to sort of protect yourself from the fear of like, responsibility, even though Sam wasn't responsible, or even just some of those feelings of loneliness, protecting ourselves from the loneliness by not talking about Calvin anymore. To begin talking about those things, if someone like this decides to go to therapy, it means like lowering your guard to whatever emotions are there. And when I think of what it means to process something, what I really think of is we're integrating it. Loneliness, for example, is an appropriate emotion for us to feel because it compels us to seek connection with other people. But if I've been protecting myself from loneliness by not really going through some of those hard emotions that I have about losing my brother, that may sort of dampen what's in the sort of warm shadow of that loneliness, which is my desire to connect. And so we can absolutely protect ourselves from those difficult feelings, but at the cost of maybe isolating and struggling to really make firm connections later in life. And so that's one of the points of really going through and processing and integrating those things, is because you're trying to sort of reintegrate the feeling of loneliness in a healthy way so that it can sort of restore the virtue that it's meant to provide. At least that's sort of the way I think about it.
Mom said Grandpa Sam enlisted at 18 and never set foot in the room again.
Oh, and think of what else we're protecting, like to not even be able to engage with my own childhood, my own sense of nostalgia, my own sense of lost adventure and sort of like whimsical carefreeness. I can't engage with this anymore because to visit a place that reminds me of that is so traumatic. Probably means that Sam grew up really, really fast. And you're not going to end up likely having the disposition that Edie had, who even into her 90s still knows what it's like to be a child. I actually like these interactive bits a lot. They're so simple, but they're very satisfying.
The passages were a pretty tight fit. They'd obviously been built for smaller hands and bellies.
Should I go here first?
Growing up, I always thought of Barbara as a child star.
Maybe this is Barbara's room.
I never thought about how hard it must have been for her afterwards.
Happy birthday.
Of all the stories people wrote about Barbara's death, I'm surprised Edie saved this one.
Old Jack here with another ghastly tale inspired by America's most unfortunate family. I'm calling it The Surprise Ending of Barbara Finch. As a child star, Barbara was famous for her scream. Now at 16, she was all washed up. A has-been. But in a lucky break, she'd been asked to perform her signature scream at a local convention for monster movie fans. It was just the boost her career needed. Unfortunately, her scream hadn't aged well.
Getting better. I think you just need the right motivation.
Her biggest fan and current boyfriend, Rick, was about to demonstrate when...
Now that was a great scream.
It was Barbara's father, Sven. He'd slipped into a table saw and had to be rushed
my God.
to the emergency room. So Barbara got stuck babysitting her youngest brother, Walter. Her convention comeback was cancelled.
Okay, I'm hearing frustration, but I'm not hearing terror. What if I tried...
A gang of hoodlums in Halloween masks have been terrorizing Orcas Island tonight. Police are urging residents to...
That came from the basement.
You're right! Also, I loved your delivery on that. Why is your basement door locked?
Because my dad likes making puzzles and secret passages. There's a key hidden in the music box. The secret is to keep winding and winding until finally the key pops out.
Thanks, babe. I'll be back in a sec.
20 minutes later, Rick hadn't returned. So Barbara went to look for him, right on cue.
This is so creative. I love this.
She reached for the music box. And as she wound the key, she listened for Rick, but the house was silent.
Right, we couldn't get in there earlier.
Rick,
Is that the Halloween theme?
are you okay? This isn't funny.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if I could move. Oh, this is amazing, the way they're integrating this style into the gameplay. I love like horror movies and stuff, so this is maybe my favorite of these little vignettes so far.
And imagine the worst.
Obviously, the drama is very serious here, but the creativity here is just so playful. I love it. Oh my God, this is great.
The gang's leader is the infamous Hookman killer, Dr. Carl Hamill, who impaled and then ate his family 10 years ago tonight.
I would love a whole game like this, like in this style. It's sort of cel shaded. horror vibes.
Your fridge rattled and grew still.
Oh my god!
Rick?
Barb, relax. I was just trying to scare you to help you find your scream.
Aww.
Scared Rick. I'm furious.
Act furious. All I'm getting from you now is that you're hurt and confused and
That's great.
Kept a little something to remember him by.
Barb, have you seen my other crutch?
And she was still holding it when she fell asleep
What the heck?
watching the late picture show. Hours later...
Barbara! Walter, what's going on up there? Ah! Okay, I'm coming up, but if this is a trick, you're dead, Walter.
Oh, this is also interesting. We get to see the house, like, sort of at an older state. With a spooky skeleton as well. I'm a little disappointed his bones don't rattle. Walter. Which room was Walter? Is he down here? No. Walter Finch.
Walter, are you there? Walter vanished, but his bedside radio was still on.
Orcas Island police described the man as 6 feet tall, with a steel hook for a hand. Residents are urged to lock all doors and windows and notify the police of any suspicious activity.
Barbara turned, saw the Hookman, and was speechless. He was quite smashing.
Is it for real?
He couldn't get enough of Barbara.
Is it a real Hookman?
There's gotta be another way out of here.
She played her part beautifully.
Oh, this looks like we're back in Molly's room.
Molly's door hadn't been opened in years. The hinges grow.
Whack!
He wasn't moving, but she sensed the story might not be over yet.
Okay. Is another fake out?
The Hookman had vanished. She listened for his breathing, but all she heard was...
What is going on? Still can't tell what's real.
At the door, she heard whispering. It was coming from inside the house.
Oh dear.
Hmm? Two people.
The monsters had come to
What?
surprise her. For Barbara, it was a dream come true. Then she saw what kind of monsters they were, and she realized what was about to happen. She was going to be famous. And with her final breath, Barbara Finch gave the performance of her life. I wasn't there myself, but I hear Barbara was magnificent. Poor girl. She had a taste for stardom.
So what?
Fortunately, so did her fans. Of course, the police blamed it all on poor Rick, who disappeared the same night.
Wait,
And
what?
little Walter, hiding under his bed the whole time. He took it all pretty hard, but that's another story. As for Barbara, tucked inside the music box is all they ever found of her. Her ear.
What?
Now that's what I call a real eerie tale.
Oh my god.
Edie told me all Barbara wanted was to be remembered, as absurd as that comic was. Maybe what Edie saw was a happy ending.
Okay, that's one I'm more confused than others of like what the sort of what the metaphor is alluding to. I mean, clearly Molly, well, not necessarily clearly, but was definitely at least struggling with starvation. And Calvin seems to have fallen off of the cliff into the water or jumped, we don't know. I mean, I guess there's the implication that there was some sort of serial killer. Could it really be that simple? But like, what the fuck? Maybe a crazed fan. So the story is suggesting, like, from what the outside public thinks, is that this is like an ill-fated family. Like it said, the most cursed family. Because there's probably some distinction between, like, what's the family story about what happened and what's the public story about what happened. Obviously, like, the public stories may sensationalize certain things and have an agenda to sort of build, like, I don't know, credibility around, like, there's something crazy about that family. Maybe there's something wrong with them, you know? But was it just pure misfortune? Was there really something going on? I think the most tangible thing to me seems to be that because there was so much misfortune in the family, Edith's mom was extremely paranoid about something happening to her own kids. And so it was basically like, y'all are never leaving the house, which is pretty fucked up that her mind went there. But also, like, can you imagine? You come from a lineage of, like, people who just had extremely tragic things happen to them. And then you have these 3 kids, and of course, you don't want something to happen to them. But what kind of life is it as well? It's really complicated. Okay. I think there was another way to go in the passageway here.
I guess now I know why Mom didn't like me playing with the music box.
So Edith is also only now discovering some of these things. Like, it seems like there's probably, like, sort of common knowledge in the family that everyone was dying young, or at least a majority of people. Obviously, like, Dawn became old enough to have kids, so it's not like everyone's dying young necessarily. But it doesn't seem like these stories were... Some of them must have been talked about by Edie, but probably the fantastical ones. Like, maybe that's the version we're sort of getting now, right? What happened to Molly, Barbara, Calvin is maybe some of the ways that Edith heard about them was from Edie, these sort of fantastical things. As Edith grows up and matures and maybe no longer requires those sort of simplified metaphors for things, she can kind of parse the real versions of what happened a little more clearly. God, this is so interesting. Oh, we're back here. I mean, the main question that I would probably have for someone like Edith, right, as I'm imagining we're in that kind of...
All those times I played with the music box and never found the basement key.
I keep interrupting myself with the game. The most like important question I would have is like, what do you feel towards mom now, right? Sort of trying to understand like how complicated is her view of mom, and how has it changed since she was a kid? And I imagine she would at least say something like, I don't want to be mad at her for what she did or the way that she raised us. Because you can see in some of her narration that she's like, oh, I know now why mom didn't let me play there or mess with the music box or these sorts of things. She's learning about why, but that doesn't necessarily mean she's fully empathetic towards it. I wonder how much she sort of buys into the family curse stuff, or if she thinks it was overprotectiveness, or I don't know. It's hard to tell just from what we've seen so far, but so much of who she is as a person, her identity, must have been built out of like, I am another person in this like lineage of unfortunate family events. On one hand, I can imagine her thinking, you know, is something like that waiting for me as well? But the way that sort of we're hearing from her and the way she's interacting with all of this, especially that she seems to lean more towards like Edie's perspective of like at least attempting to feel optimistic and a little more fantastical about the world, is that she's not fully bought in to some of those things. Clearly enough to leave the house, right? It seems like she ran away. And she's coming back to sort of rediscover some of these things. Now that mom has passed away, she can sort of safely explore this environment and what she feels about it without either those like physical interruptions or those emotional interruptions, like, don't go in there, it's dangerous. No, we can't go outside. No, you can't be like other kids, right? Like, just sort of imagine the pressures that are put on a child like Edith in that upbringing, which would essentially create a very sort of avoidant coping style. And so think about like what the implications of this are for dealing with any sort of problem, right? There's really only sort of two things we do to try to cope with things, which is we either try to change our situation or we try to change how we feel about the situation, or some combination of both. And with a highly avoidant coping style, changing the situation means running from it, blocking it up, sort of, putting it out of reach, like just trying to sort of like wall off any access or potential to any kind of dangerous thing, which, because these events are all sort of misfortunes, are not super predictable. I mean, we tell kids like, avoid certain things that are predictable, like look both ways when you cross the street. But if I'm Dawn and I'm thinking about how to teach my child with an avoidant coping style to deal with things, it's like, don't go anywhere, don't do anything, right? And then as far as like trying to change how I feel about things, this is sort of more mental exercise. Like, don't think about those things, don't talk about those things. Even talking about them can bring up enough of the anxiety that it could predict the situation, right? And so that is probably quite suffocating for a child, and something that can create a lot of like negative internal bias to one making their own decisions, being able to listen to others who aren't mom, right? Like kind of a difficulty trusting. But it seems like Edith was sort of shaped in an environment not holistically by mom. She had Edie as well, which kind of let her see that there is more that you can do to solve problems than just avoid them. which to me, the opposite of avoidance is to take initiative, right? And you can take initiative towards your problems. Try to change the situation by, solving it. Try to change how you feel about something by integrating it, processing it, right? The sort of therapeutic model. And that's kind of what she's doing right now. Like, after mom passes away, it's no longer time to avoid this situation, these subjects. She's taking initiative to sort of figure out what happened, what she feels about it.
Comic was right about there being a key inside the music box near the basement.
Oh, thank you for the clue. Doing this all alone, I think it says she's 16. Like, this takes so much initiative. It is absolutely not the imprint of a coping style that says she took after mom on these things.
A lot of things got left behind in the whirlwind of that last night.
Hmm. Okay, down into the basement. And, you know, those different sort of coping styles, maybe initiative and avoidant coping styles, that's going to have different implications for how you do therapy with someone like that, the kinds of things we might suggest, right? The kind of techniques and what would be effective. For someone with more avoidance, what we probably need is more exposure, right? Exposure to the thing that we are afraid of happening so that we realize that taking initiative for it is not so bad. Having too much initiative is probably also not good. Like, there are things that you should avoid as well. Like, you should avoid toxic people, toxic relationships, things that will harm you, right? People that will harm you. So, like, it's not to say that avoidance is always bad. But for someone who does take more initiative, right, the exposure part is sort of an easy sell. And we need less incentive, I guess, to sort of encourage that, because the person's willing to try and experiment already. And I think it's more of like, go and take the initiative, explore this thing, but it's more deeper processing, more unpacking what sort of reflections you have about what she's seeing here in Edith's case.
Mom said the basement was off limits, unless I wanted another tetanus shot.
Yeah, everything's about, like, being scary. But, like, I understand that to a kid, that can create a lot of curiosity to go down there.
I saw Edie sneak down to the basement once, carrying packages.
Yeah, she clearly modeled more of her coping style and
maybe she was hiding presents.
And just her personality after Edie.
It turned out she was hiding a lot more than that.
Ooh. What secrets did Edie have as well? Oh, shit. Wait, is this going to be like a total bait and switch? Are we going to find out that Edie is like...
I remember asking Mom once about where Walter had gone.
something horrible?
She said after Barbara died, he got as far away as he could.
What the fuck?
If there's a pattern in all these stories, I think it's that none of us has gotten very far.
Huh.
Goodbye, everyone. I can't believe I've been down here for 30 years.
What?
On that first day, after the shaking started, I didn't think I'd survive the week.
Walter has been down here?
But after a few days, I settled into a routine. That's what kept me sane. Having a schedule, living for today. I always expected to be dead tomorrow. But if you wait long enough, you get used to anything.
Ooh, I also have like kind of a theory in my mind, like speaking of some of the metaphor and theory crafting.
Even a monster.
I'm gonna wait till this funky music stops though.
To feel normal. Almost friendly. And then one day, everything just stopped. Whatever that thing was, it was gone. Maybe it got tired of waiting. Or maybe I just got tired of being afraid. It's been a week now, the longest in 30 years. I'm done waiting. I have to leave while I still can.
What I'm wondering is, like, how come Edie got to be, like, 90? Is there something about her personality that helped her stay alive so long? Like, what connects her to Edie, Edith to Edie is their sort of optimism and faithfulness in life still having some joy and some silliness and absurdity and playfulness to it. And I'm wondering if, like, part of the thematic storytelling here is that depression kills you, basically. Like, just straight up. Molly, absolutely suffering from depression in a survival state. Barbara suffering from depression in a feeling like the best of life was behind her. And Calvin, not really sure. And Walter as well. Isolation. Like, was it being happy that kept Edie safe from whatever's happening here? And is it the same thing that keeps Edith alive? I don't know. There's something there.
I know it's out there somewhere.
Well, and it must have been Edie who was sort of helping Walter survive. Bringing him things. Maybe there's an aspect of connection being something that...
Whatever killed Barbara.
Keeps them alive.
And Molly.
Depression.
Calvin.
The thing that was out there was depression. That's my theory.
It's all a mistake. But I need to stop living the same day. Even if it kills me. Whatever's out there, I want you to know I'm ready for it. I'm going to appreciate all of it, especially the food. I don't mind if I only have a year left. Or a month. Or a single week. I'd be happy with one mere day. I can already imagine the sun on my face.
Walter died when I was 6. I can't believe my mom never told me he was down here.
Maybe she didn't know. These sort of postcards. It's like such a minor but probably really important form of escapism. To surviving in this space. He painted some train models. Kept himself alive. But there was just no meaning in the experience. Like, I'm keeping myself alive, but for what? What am I living for except just to be alive?
I'm sure my mom was trying to protect me.
But here we go. I'm curious now if she's going to sort of talk about how she thinks of Mom.
Maybe she was afraid I'd end up like Walter. But if she never told me about an uncle under the house, I can only imagine what else she was hiding. I don't want to make the same mistakes she made. Trying to bury something that's still alive.
Trying to bury something that's still alive. Oh, that just hit so hard.
There's only one of us left. Or maybe 2. I thought it was time I heard the stories for myself.
Who's the other person?
And found out what happened to everyone else. But now I'm worried the stories themselves might be the problem. Maybe we believed so much in a family curse, we made it real.
What is that out there? She said maybe 2. Is she talking about maybe her brother who disappeared and didn't come back? I guess it's possible he's still out there.
I don't know if I should even be writing this. Maybe it'd be better if all this just died with me. But I thought you should know about your family.
Who is she writing to?
And the history you're a part of.
Is it possible that we are maybe like, I don't know, this is a long shot. Are we sort of experiencing Edith's journal entry story vignette in memory, the same way that like that's what we're doing with some of these other characters? Like Has all of this already come to pass? Like, has Edith maybe grown up and had a child and communicating to us through that same medium? Like, reading her mom's journal? Potentially, that means that Edith and her own child are alive.
Though to be honest, I feel as lost as you probably do right now.
What is happening inside my head? This is.
People in these stories believed them, for what that's worth.
Okay, it's getting really interesting. What's happening? Is the story in my head or am I in its head? Wait. I'm just like, there's got to be enough space on this book for someone to follow Edith or something. I don't know.
Look at the house. Had that history of imagination and stubbornness and madness. Any of it seems possible.
Maybe we're not Edith at all. Was it like the first scene of this game, us opening the journal and reading this? Like, kind of forgot about that because it was the first thing that happened, but what if this is not Edith revisiting these things at all, but this is the next person? And Edith is sort of providing a lot of context to us for what we're experiencing now. Like, we're not seeing Edith engage with these stories, but maybe her own daughter. Who are we?
I think we've been surrounded by death for so long, we've just gotten used to it. What kind of family finishes building a cemetery before starting the house?
Man. Yeah. One where, like, the experience of unexpected death is so integral to the family history. But if my theory is correct, which I'm not always correct on these sorts of things, but if it's correct, I think that Edith overcame a lot of this because look what she must have communicated to her own daughter about the importance of discovery and curiosity and, you know, having the context to understand how these events took place and what people think about them. The stories about how these people died in these sort of abstract ways are just as important as the fact that they really did die, I think. That history matters because it's what they believed. It's what created the lifestyle and the lineage and all of those things. But clearly, she's not softened or suffocated enough of that to the point where, you know, the next generation is so avoidant of them and that these are such foreign things. To me, that says that Edith's been a good parent.
It's embarrassing for me to admit this, but the pet cemetery made me more uncomfortable than the human one. 3 of the gerbils were mine, and 2 had been my fault.
A whole pet cemetery? Zerpy, Lurpy, Furpy, Chirpy, Burpy, Derpy, and Derpy Jr. Dang. 13 years. It's pretty good. Bailey.
Sven built the house, but it was Edie who designed the cemetery. I'm sure Odin's monument had been Edie's idea.
Well, I also didn't see Dawn. She's not here. Why is she not here? I mean, we know that Dawn passed away in 2016. Something's going on. I don't have all the information here.
My mom was always trying to move on, but for Edie, the past never went away. She could see it poking out of the water at low tide. Edie said she dreamed about the old house every night.
Oh. It's a rare Ninja appearance. It's usually my other cat who likes to be in front of the camera. But every once in a while, this one comes to say hello. I feel like this game is just like, I take a couple steps and go, I take a couple more and I'm like, but wait a second. What the fuck is actually happening? And then I go.
Edie's side was always easier for me to understand. But the older I get, the more I can see where my mom was coming from. Her dad had been pretty strict, but it wasn't enough to save her brothers. She was just trying to do better.
So, Edith's thoughts on mom have definitely evolved over time. That's gotta be it, dude. Okay, wait a second. That just might have put everything into perspective for me. Why does she now understand her mom? Because she has her own child.
She lost 2 of her brothers, just like I did. I get why she tried so hard to protect us.
She had a hard time understanding that when it was just her. But now that she has her own kid?
We never found Milton's body, so my mom insisted we were putting up a monument, not a tombstone.
And what a heartbreaking thing as well for mom. You know, heartbreaking, but also like the one thing that gives her hope is the idea that not all of my children passed away. There's still one out there. Like, she clung to that. I think that's tragically beautiful.
There's so many things I wish I could ask my mom now. Part of me thinks this is what she wanted all along. For me to come back someday. and find everything out for myself.
There's so many moments that every line I'm like, this theory's in my head now, and it won't go away until I get something concrete. I'm going to pause it here. It's clear that there's so much more nuance to this whole family dynamic and this whole situation than any one perspective on what happened in the family is going to get, which is what I think is so
But looking back on it now,
great about this game's storytelling is we are getting this sort of singular perspective, Edith's perspective. My theory is that we're also getting a secondary perspective. But being able to sort of observe these kind of fantastical storylines about what happened to everybody, you know, that's how family stories are. Like, not everyone has the complete information either. If you ever are curious about your own family history, you know that, like, some of the information can be hard to track down, and you're always getting it filtered through someone's narration, someone's understanding of those people and what the meaning of some of their decisions were, especially if there's some controversy around some of those decisions. But it's up to everyone who sort of goes looking for that information to kind of find their own meaning, right? Edith seems to have been going and searching for a way to understand her mother in more than one dimension. Like, maybe as a child, she felt like this is really suppressing to me, and maybe she ran away because of that. But clearly later in life, she sought to restore a, if not a positive, but a dynamic and empathetic view of her mother through looking into these stories, trying to understand, like, I don't necessarily agree with the decisions my mom made about how she raised me and the fear that she might have indirectly instilled. But I don't want to, like, hate her as a person. Like, if I can sort of understand what stories she grew up with and why she might have done those things, it doesn't necessarily make it okay, but it can certainly make it less painful. And to go, you know, into the rest of her life not feeling like she has to protect her own emotions about mom and all of these very important people that she's familiar with only through kind of incomplete stories. It's fascinating. This is brilliant. Brilliant storytelling, brilliant narration, and brilliant in the way it's leading me on to certain conclusions. So I'm going to pause it here for this second episode and see if some of these ideas bear out. But I don't want to leave Edith in mid-sentence either.
if she told me there was going to be so much climbing, I never would have come when I was 22 weeks pregnant.
Oh my God! No way! I fucking knew it! No way! All right. That's the episode. I'll see you again for the next one. Fucking brilliant storytelling. A story is so good if it can sort of lead you on like that, and then like right at the moment of suspicion, deliver that conclusion. Yeah. That's incredible. That is incredible. And incredible. It's just what a what a moment of serendipity. All right. I'll see you again for the next one. Take care, everybody.